Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to day 3 of my campaign to be online every day at 4 o'clock till the end of August. Gonna have to change that on Monday and be a little bit earlier. But today, I thought I was gonna. Last night, I watched a program on BBC2. So I'm sorry for my American friends who may be looking in here. You probably won't be able to get access to this because I don't think you can access the BBC iPlayer. But the program was called Can Kids Go Gender Free? And that's really the issue that I want to sort of address today. I put a little post earlier on, Can Kids Go Gender Free? And this is a 2-part documentary that's being run on BBC2. I think it's at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock. Wednesday night, and there'll be another episode next Wednesday, and I'll be talking about this again after I've seen the second episode because I'm really interested to see where this is going to go. But the title of the program was No More Boys and Girls, and really starting to look at the whole issues around gender equality. The secondary, or the subtitle, if you like, is Can Kids Go Gender Free? And I'm not entirely sure that the program properly addressed that. Now, I don't know if anybody has seen that. I'm hoping a few people are going to come in shortly and maybe talk about this and add a few comments, maybe ask some questions. Please, if you're looking in, do come in, ask questions, particularly if you saw the program. I'd love to be able to talk about that to anyone and answer any questions. Some of you who know me will know that my master's degree was in gender research, so it's a topic quite dear to my heart. It's a topic I train about, I speak about as a keynote speaker. So it's one of my main topics for speaking. But the issue, I think what was interesting about this is that it's a doctor who's gone in to do the presenting. They've gone into a small primary school in the Isle of Wight. Now, for primary school is up to age 11. This particular group of kids that they're talking to and looking at in one class are all about age 7. Now, I think in the US that's around about, it's either first or second grade. So they're young kids at their first stages in the education process. And what they've done in the program is to do some psychometric testing. They've picked this age because these children, all around about, let's say, about age 7, born in 2008, 2009. So they were born just as the Equality Act 2010 was being drafted. Now, the UK Equality Act is probably one of the most progressive pieces of equalities legislation anywhere in the world. We have really good equality legislation here. Not sure this current government is very happy with it because it was put together by the previous government. But it's been something I've been very much connected with because when I finished my degree, it was just all happening at the same time. And I got very actively involved around about 2008-9 in helping, actually in doing some of the helping of putting together the research for the drafting of that, particularly around transgender issues. What this program is doing is really trying to tackle and address the issue of gender equality. And to that extent, it's an awesome program, really, in fact, quite shocking in some areas because they started by doing some psychometric testing. They brought in a psychologist to talk to all the kids, go through a number of exercises and get the kids to express their views about gender, about what they feel about gender. They've done various different tests on how kids see themselves, how they see the other gender, how boys see girls, girls see boys. And also about their perceptions of men and women as they grow up. What sort of jobs do men do? What sort of jobs do women do? And how they feel about themselves, how they express themselves. Some of the things that came out of this to me, which were really interesting. First of all, the big one was that girls lack self-confidence. Now, I think what's interesting is we know that continues to be a problem for girls and women as they grow older. Women coming out of university within 5 years of getting a degree will probably be earning 25%, 30% less than men who come out with a degree at the same time. A lot of the reason behind that from the research shows that women lack the confidence to ask for higher wages, to go for a job. We know that, for example, women were far more likely to look at the job requirements, look at the job specification, and if they don't match everything on the desirable contents, they'll probably not go for it. Whereas men, on the other hand, will look at the job spec, and if they've got a couple of them, they'll give it a go and see if they can blag their way in. And I've sat on lots of recruitment panels and seen that in practice, where women who are overqualified hadn't put themselves forward for a job because there was one thing or a couple of things on the job specification which really weren't that important, probably shouldn't have been on the essential requirements. And because they didn't match those, or because they didn't feel that they matched up to them, they not put themselves forward. Whereas men with just a couple of qualities have said, right, okay, I know I can do this job. I know I haven't got the qualifications you want, but I can still do it. And it's that confidence and lack of that boys have compared to girls that seems to be such a huge problem. And what we see in this program is that that's embedded. It's there. The kids have actually got themselves locked into it. By the time that they are age 7, they've already got that lack of self-confidence. At the other side, we see boys in the program unable to find the words to express emotion. They gave them a number of different words, asked them to look at alternative ways of expressing that. The boys struggled, couldn't find ways to express it, with the exception of anger. So boys can express anger, but they can't express most of the other emotions, whereas girls have a huge variety of ways in which they can express those emotions. And we see that. The boys don't cry, boys not showing their expression, bottling everything up so that it bursts out in anger when they finally have to let go. And there was a classic example in the program of a little boy who just didn't match up to his own personal expectations, and his way of expressing it was in a outburst of anger, kicking a straw bale and screaming and shouting. And I think that's really interesting, is that we're seeing that. And it wasn't staged, this just happened. It was just the way that this group went. They also asked some questions about perceived intelligence. How good did you see? And also some perceptions on how strong you were, how good you were going to be. And in every single case, generally the girls understated and underestimated their ability, which then they exceeded when they were actually put to a test, where boys generally overstated that. So we've got this whole problem that perceived attention. Hi, Andrea, welcome in. Good to see you. So we've got this whole problem with perceived that girls not seeing themselves as good enough. And again, I've seen that so often in recruiting when I've been working in senior management, trying to promote women within the financial services industry, hugely problematic, because so many women just didn't see themselves as good enough to do it, whereas men who just didn't really have the qualities pushed themselves forward, expecting to get jobs on the basis that they just had the confidence to go for it. And men seem to do that. I think the other thing that I saw in this program that was really interesting was the extent to which we're seeing conscious and unconscious bias, not just of the kids, because the kids are being, it is happening to the kids, but it's the parents and the teachers. Now, they did 2 little experiments in this program for those that haven't seen it. And those were really saying that in terms of the unconscious bias, they took 2 babies, cross-dressed them. So boy dressed as a girl dressed as a boy, and then they got various different volunteers to come in and play with the kids. And in almost every single case, the moment the parents saw what they thought was a girl, they immediately pulled at the fluffy toys, the dolls, the girly toys, and encouraged the child to play with those. If it was what they perceived to be a boy, then they were automatically going for the the harder toys, the cars, putting them on slightly more risky toys, getting them on a bike. So immediately we got more boys being exposed to more risk, expected to be doing some things more risky. Girls are being protected. Everything's got to be soft and fluffy, and as if they're delicate. And we know that there is no physical difference in terms of strength and ability. Kids right the way through to puberty have pretty much the same strength, but all the way through, these kids are being groomed to feel that boys are stronger than girls all the way through, right from this early age. Boys' spatial awareness is being encouraged by the fact that they're getting Lego toys, they're getting construction toys, they're getting things that encourage them to play with this, where girls all the time just giving toys that are actually for nurturing. So we're seeing that, and that was really interesting to see that the way the parents were enforcing or reinforcing all the time stereotypical views, and the teacher himself, every time he spoke about a girl, used the term love or sweet pea. If it was a boy, then it's going to be talking to him as mate, fellas, lads. So all the time reinforcing that gender difference, reinforcing the difference between it. And of course, when the boys were asked, how would you feel if the teacher called you sweet pea? They were absolutely aghast. How can anybody think of calling me like that? So all the time, what this experiment is doing is trying to remove all of this unconscious gendering in an experiment against a control group to see how much difference this is going to make. And next week, we're going to see the results in the second time. Now, this is all about pushing stereotypes, and there was another great instance. Kids were did a whole long exercise. I do recommend watching the program about what was happening in regards to. We've got some silly person here. What was going on in regards to stereotypes? Yeah, what kind of jobs they expect? What is a hairdresser male or female? And of course, what they've done is to bring in people who are atypical for those particular jobs, and creating them as role models. So at the end of the day, the kids had a completely different attitude to the kind of jobs, and we're seeing the girls already becoming more confident after a couple of weeks. Now, one of the areas I did struggle with this was the fact that we've got some. Is there a brain difference? Is there a difference between a man's brain and a woman's brain? Now, they've talked to some people in Aston University, and some of the current attitudes are that there is no real difference between men and women. In terms of the brain differences, that the brain is pretty much a plastic thing, that it changes and moves as we get older, and that a lot of the differences we see in the brain are the result of the way in which we have been gendered through life. Now, I'm not convinced about that, because I have to, I've got myself, I'm transgender. So I was born from this age at age 7. I was already aware that I was uncomfortable, that there was something wrong. I should have been born in another body. And I'm not entirely sure where that's coming from or how that comes about. I'd be interested to see in the next program whether anybody does start to, I'd just like to see exactly whether somebody starts to address the issue of what happens if we've got young boys who are maybe gay or gender variant within the class, or girls who are gender variant. How does that fit in to the gender equality? Would it be if we had a society where there literally was no difference, where boys and girls could dress in any way they want, express themselves as they wanted, and there was no level of bullying or pressure or coercion by parents, by teachers, no pushing them into stereotypes? I'd be very interested to see if this experiment could be taken to to the end, the nth degree. How far would that change the way kids are? Would it actually mean that some people who are trans or gender variant would actually say, actually, I'm cool? We're getting an increase at the moment in what I can only call gender non-binary, gender variants, people who are expressing gender in a much broader sense. Boys expressing femininity, girls expressing masculinity. People who expressing no gender preference at all, just being in an environment where we can't really tell. How would we feel if kids came to school and you couldn't tell at the age of 7 or 8 whether they were boys or girls? Would parents be comfortable with that? It'll be interesting to see, because I think in the next program they're going to try to address that sort of issue and go for that. So, not getting any questions coming through. Jamie's made a point, saw this program, was shocked at how these young children were already gender stereotypes and so deeply ingrained by the age of 7. I think that's it. And because at age of 7 it's fixed, it really, really doesn't change much after that. So anyway, that's the thoughts. I'm going to be interested to see what happens next week. when that program comes up. When I go live next week on this program, I'm going to address the same thing, and we'll have a look at that and just see where they've gone with it. The trailer suggested they are going to play a little bit with a bit of cross-gender behaviour to see how the boys react and the girls react. I'm going to be very interested to see how the parents react to that, how do the children react to that, how do the kids feel about the difference between boys and girls being eroded so that it's not clear whether somebody's a boy or a girl, because I think a lot of people like that difference. In fact, within the trans community, it's fairly clear that when somebody feels as if they're born in the wrong body, the thing they want to do is express often an extreme form of the other gender. So trans women who want to be very, very feminine, trans men who want to be very masculine. A lot of my trans men friends grow beards and look very, very masculine very quickly after they start transitioning. So that's going to be really interesting. Gone on a little bit longer today than yesterday. If you get a chance and you can see that program, I really do recommend it. Really interesting. I think you'll be shocked and fascinated by what they're doing, and it's done in a really constructive way. And I think it'll be a very useful. It's going to be a very useful exercise to help all schools to start questioning the way in which they are gendering our children and what they might be able to do to start at least bringing some level of gender equality into schools so that kids do grow up at least feeling that they have a wider choice of what they do with their lives, their education, their work, and how they move forward. And hopefully at the same time also remove some of the horrible levels of discrimination that takes place. I had somebody watching in at the show who's put some pretty offensive comments on here, which I haven't bothered to show. And it shows that even now, still out in the world, there are people who struggle with anything that doesn't comply with their idea of what gender should be, and do anything they can to force people into that. My feeling often is that people like that often have their own gender issues that they're terrified to express. And so the only way they can deal with it is to try and attack other people who do express their gender in a different way. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks very much indeed for listening in. Hope to see you tomorrow. Not sure what the topic is. I'm going to be doing some interviews and putting a whole show together as we go through this 14 days as I get to use this program, but I will be watching the news, and if something comes up that I think is a good topic to talk about, I'll pop it up and we'll see if we can get a discussion going in the future. Nice to see you all. See you again soon. Take care.